Hello everyone, I hope you're well and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to review 1984 by George Orwell. I picked this book for my book club, Tay's Book Club, so this whole video is going to be spoiler free. I'm going to give you the plot of the book, my opinions on it, and then I'm going to read out your reviews that you sent me of what you think of this book. So, this book is about a man called Winston. He lives in a place called Oceania, but Oceania used to be London, and he's living in this dictatorship. And at the top of the dictatorship there's someone called Big Brother, and Big Brother is always watching you. So you are always under surveillance, and Winston works at the Ministry of Truth, which is the Ministry of Lies, is really what it is, because it rewrites history. So a new story will come out and his job is to rewrite it, to rewrite what has happened, so no one will know that he's rewriting it and no one will know that he's writing lies. There are people called the proles, and they are normal everyday people, and you can't go against Big Brother, you can't go against the party, otherwise you'll be disappeared or you will be killed, and there are public hangings within the book. And this is George Orwell's interpretation of what he thinks the future could become if we don't watch out for things like freedom of speech. Now, a few other things that I want to name before I get into my review is there is stuff called Newspeak, which Newspeak is the language that you are allowed to use. So there is Newspeak dictionaries with all the words that you're allowed to use, and the idea of it is that you get rid of any words that go against the party so that people can't express themselves anymore. So if people don't have the language to express themselves, they won't be able to say how disappointed they are with the party or rebel against the party in any kind of way. They'll be easier to control. And then there's a thing called doublethink, which is when you convince yourself of a lie. So you know something is a lie, but you manage to convince your mind that it's the truth and that you never knew that thing was a lie. There are different ministries within the books, and the saying for the party is, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, and that is said throughout the book continually. So everything within this world is the wrong way round. So there is the Ministry of Peace, which is really all about making war. There is the Ministry of Truth, which Winston works for, which is all about writing lies. And Winston feels like he's the only sane person, and he decides that he's going to write a diary. And he tells us through this diary about his past relationship, he tells us about his work colleagues, and then he starts talking to someone who's a pro, and I found that scene really interesting when he's talking to this man and saying to him, like, do you remember a time before what we're living in right now? I'm not sure if I do, but are these things true? He's found in old history books and he wants to see if that stuff is right, if the stuff that the party is telling him is right, and he doesn't believe it, but he feels very lonely that he's the only person that doesn't believe it, and everyone else is so for the party and loves the party, and he can't get into it, he can't give it his full all, but he also doesn't want to be caught out for not doing that and not believing what the party is saying. I loved this book. I thought it was so good. I kept rereading parts of it as well. I feel like there are parallels today. Obviously, many countries in the world live under dictatorships, and a lot of the things within the book, like their TVs are regulated and the stuff that they can watch has to be approved by the political parties. So there definitely is stuff to do with this that is real around the world. I thought this book was absolute genius. I absolutely adored it. I did find it quite depressing. We are currently in lockdown in England at the moment, and just being in a lockdown and being restricted by your government, and then reading this book, which is all about if you're restricted by your government, this is where it could lead, was all very frightening. But I absolutely adored this book so much. So I have actually done a separate video about the poem that inspired this book, and I will link that video down below. And George Orwell's first wife wrote a poem that was called 1984, and she wrote it before this book was ever published, and she set it on 1984 because it was 10 years on from the date when she wrote the poem, and she had been asked to write a poem for her old school, and it was 10 years of the school, and so that's why she wrote a poem 10 years in the future. What might the future be in 10 years for this school and for society in general? And there are weird parallels in that poem to this book, so people think that he was very much inspired by her poem and then he went on to write the book 1984. I just loved it. I just thought it was so perfect. And even there's a bit in the middle of it where he starts reading out someone else's book, and I don't normally like books within a book when it's just the character is reading a story and then it just prints the story straight into the book. But I think it really worked really well within this. It gave us more context and a deeper meaning of different things within the book. I just loved it so much. And I think that was such a clever way to do it, because Winston was reading this book that someone else had written about the time, and he was saying, I already know these things. So obviously he wouldn't just repeat it to you, the reader, so it made sense that he was reading a book and that it was just within the book. The things when he was writing his diary I found really interesting, the things of his life with his wife before, and then he builds friendship with someone who works in the party. I found that really interesting, and everyone, just the tension of everyone looking at each other and his thinking, am I the only one that doesn't believe this? Am I the only one that questions who is this Big Brother person and why are we meant to believe him? And when he says these people are traitors of the party, are they traitors of the party? Am I a traitor of the party? There was like so much tension within it that he was like, am I going to be caught out at any moment because I think differently? And because they have these telly screens in your house, even if your own house, you don't have any real privacy. And so the whole thing was just so tense, and I absolutely loved it. I adored this so much. So now on to your reviews. Quite a few people started the book, but they haven't finished it yet, and you said that you found it really depressing, just with everything that's going on with the world at the moment. You just found it a bit too depressing to finish. So I totally understand that, and I understand your points in not finishing it. So I'm going to read out a review. JJ Amira of Words and Coffee says, 1984 would have seemed too crazy to believe near the years it was published, but here we are in 2020. 1984, by the way, was originally published in 1949. It's scary to see some parallels that are happening right now. The things that struck me the most while reading 1984 was the use of Newspeak, cutting down words to simplify everything, which would then destroy freedom of speech. Everyone was known as comrade. Your individuality was gone. In this book, George Orwell expresses what happens when we give in to fear. We eventually lose what's left us and society. I really loved both Julian and Winston. They both wanted Big Brother to be destroyed, but both had different ways to achieve it. Same purpose, different ideas. I wanted a different ending so bad, but I like to think why Orwell ended it that way. He needed more believers to fight this big war. Hannah, thank you for choosing this as September's book club pick. This book will stay with me for a very long time. Oh, thank you so much. And you always join in with my book clubs, and I chat to you on Instagram, and you're a patron of mine. So thank you so much for reading along with this book. And yes, so many great points about the individuality. So no one has their own sense of style or individuality, because you are just devoted to the party, which the party is really a government, but it's really like a god. It's absolutely everything within society is the party, and your life is all about, you know, doing the right thing for the party, saying what the party tells you to do, and the party is always to be believed, and there's no alternate voices to rival what the party is saying or hold them to account on stuff. And so you do completely lose your individuality. You are all just there to work for the party. Next, I have a comment from Jeg Aranica. I think the premise of 1984 would have made a fantastic and groundbreaking essay, but a novel? Hell no! I hated reading it so much. I think a lot of people definitely agree with you, because with the book club, loads of people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to read it. And then we're like, I've given up on it, Hannah. It's too depressing, or it's too slow, or I'm just not enjoying it anymore. So I don't agree with that review, but I think a lot of people will agree with that review, definitely. And then I thought I would include a review from someone who hasn't finished the book yet. Books Tell Tales said, still in the first part of 1984, enjoying it so far and really looking forward to what will happen next. But it does feel like there is something off the whole time. Either it's really slow paced, or the main character feels like he's speaking to us from a distance. Not sure what it is exactly, but it's been the reason why I wasn't able to finish it this month. Nonetheless, I'm still very curious and very much looking forward to what's in store. I included that comment from someone who hasn't finished it yet, because a lot of you haven't finished it yet, and a lot of you started it with me at the book club. So maybe that summarises what you're thinking. I absolutely love it. I could read the book again right now, but each to their own. You know, we can't all like the same books. But I thought it was absolutely fascinating. And the parallels between like our time now, I found really depressing within it. I just think it was such an amazing book. I just can't like recommend it enough. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So another book by George Orwell that I have read, which is a shorter book, is Animal Farm. And Animal Farm I've done a whole book review on, which I'll link that review down below. I did it years ago. I was on holiday and I just finished the book and I just like needed to talk about it because I absolutely loved it. And it's about a load of farmyard animals decide that they're going to form their own government, and it's really about the corruption of governments all around the world, and that when one person gets all the power, they, you know, take everything away from everyone, and how government can't really be fair if you have one person in charge. It just always becomes corrupt in some way, and someone becomes like power hungry with it. And so I'll link down below my Animal Farm review, and also I read the poem that inspired George Orwell's 1984 in a video. I did a whole video where I read aloud the poem from his first wife, and then I spoke about what similarities I think it has with the book, but at that time I hadn't finished the book yet. But still, I think that's a good video because I did it. Listen to me. Still, it's an amazing video, but I loved it. That's all I can say. I loved 1984. I thought it was so good. I thought it was so fascinating. The more that it was getting into Winston's life, because you're learning about the main character Winston, but then you're also learning about the time and everything that's going on there, and Newspeak, and is that person on Winston's side or are they not? Finding out that it was almost like a bit like an Agatha Christie, a bit like a murder mystery, what's going to happen, and then covering like different layers of people. But then also you were learning about Winston as the person, and I was interested about his life and how he'd come to be so depressed and felt so hopeless, things that had happened to him. The whole thing I just loved. So I'm going to end this video here. I'm doing a video every single day in February. So any other video suggestions, leave them down below. If you want to chat to me about 1984, I want to chat to someone about 1984 because I loved it so much. So we can chat down below in the comments. I feel like I'm looking very myself today. I've cracked out a floral crown. I don't know if, you know, we're in the heart of winter right now. So, you know, this probably looks mental. I don't know. It's snowing outside. But a floral crown just always brightens my day all the time. I'm going to wear this into town. I don't even care what people say to me. Anyway, I'm going to end this here and I will see you tomorrow for another video.